It feels like recently the country of Russia has been slowly but surely bringing the Iron Curtain back, because they're trying to do everything to cut off Russians from the rest of the world. After already restricting and banning a ton of Western social media in Russia, now the Russian government has also finally decided to take down Telegram and WhatsApp, literally destroying the ability to communicate for tons of people. And on top of all of that, recently in Russia, there have been widespread mobile internet shortages, where supposedly because of the threat of Ukrainian drones, large cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg often have no mobile internet and no service. But even regions of Russia such as Kamchatka, which is the furthest possible distance from the front line, these regions also have issues with mobile internet. And with all the new restrictions and new stupid laws in Russia also trying to push a new state messenger called Max, things are looking pretty bad for internet in Russia. Hey there people, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian, and in today's video, we'll talk about the Iron Curtain that Russia wishes to separate Russians from the rest of the world with, and discuss why using the internet in Russia has become such a pain in the ass. Now if you guys just want some raw data, in the month of July of 2025, Russia has set a new record of the amount of mobile internet shortages in Russian cities. Here's a graph of all the months of 2025, and in the month of May there's been 69 cases, very nice, of mobile internet going out in Russia. In the month of June, massive increase, 662, and now in July we basically had 2100 cases where mobile internet was dead in Russian cities. Usually on the territory of Russia we have partial internet shutdowns. This is when the internet works in some areas of the city but does not work in others. However, at the end of the month of July, we've gotten information about the turning off of mobile internet in certain localities completely. For example, in Krasnoyarsk Krai, there's been people who have been complaining about the internet being shut off for 5 days in a row, even though sometimes they say that in some parts of the city the network actually comes back. And actually this is happening in pretty much like every region of Russia now. I have friends from Moscow and St. Petersburg who constantly complain that, once again the internet is turned off for the entire day. And this is pretty much happening in every region at this point. For example, recently the region of Nizhny Novgorod has been notoriously hit a lot with these mobile internet shortages. Apparently even mobile service was not available in Nizhny Novgorod at certain points. Here for example, somebody in the region as well saying that she does not have a physical bank card and everything she usually buys, she buys either with cash or using her smartphone using the QR codes. I've been put in a situation that has no escape. Even though you do technically have money, you cannot buy anything with it. So she's basically saying how you can also have issues paying for stuff, which is quite funny because Russians like to pride themselves that, they have better banking and banking apps than Europe, and yet when the time comes to actually pay, you don't have mobile internet in your entire city. That's cool. And this is happening everywhere. Like, you can type in any city in Russia pretty much, an internet shortage, and you will get a result. Here for example, I looked up my hometown, Chelyabinsk, and here's an article literally from today, posted 5 hours ago. The residents of Chelyabinsk and the region have been massively complaining about the lack of internet and service. Thursday, 27th of August, the regions of Russia with the most complaints in the last 3 hours have been Moscow, St. Petersburg, Krasnodarsk Krai, Chelyabinsk, and Sverdlovsk regions. And people have complained about having no service, low internet speed, not being able to use any search engines, not being able to use bank apps, messengers, and marketplaces. And here once again is a graph of mobile internet shutdowns for the month of June right here. Essentially right after the Operation Spiderweb, that massive drone attack that Ukraine did on Russia, that is precisely the moment when they decided that Russians no longer need internet. And once again, you might say, come on, it makes sense. They have to cut off communications to try to stop these attacks. Once again, there's been internet shortages in regions of Russia so far from the front lines, like Kamchatka, which is closer to Japan than Ukraine, okay? Or Chukotka, for example. Even in those faraway regions, people are still having issues with mobile internet and service, so it feels like, yes, while they're trying to maybe cope with the fact that these drone attacks are happening, they are also kind of almost using this to experiment on the Russian people and just see how much the government can get away with at this point. I mean, this is just what it feels like. And now let's talk about the final nail in the coffin for, freedom of the internet in Russia. The biggest Iron Curtain moment that is going on right now is the ban of Telegram and WhatsApp calls. The Russian internet regulator Roskomnadzor has announced the restriction of calls in Telegram and WhatsApp. Yay! Woo! Thank you, Russian government. Yes, improving the lives of Russians every single day. The government regulator explained these restrictions by saying that the messengers have become quote-unquote main voice call services that are used to commit fraud and also steal money from people. as well as involving the Russian citizens in diversion and terrorist organizations, basically. In order to fight the activity of these criminals, Roskomnadzor is committing certain measures in order to restrict voice calls in these foreign messengers. We inform you that in order to combat criminals, according to materials of the police, we're taking measures to partially restrict calls in these foreign messengers. No other restrictions of their functions are going to be implemented. Yeah, you restricted the main and the fucking one function that actually matters in the app. Nice. Roskomnadzor has explained that according to the data of law enforcement and according to many requests of citizens, Telegram and WhatsApp, which belongs to Meta, which is considered extremist and is forbidden in Russia, have become once again the main services that are used to essentially commit fraud towards Russian people and also making them terrorists. So yes, they're officially admitting it, they're officially doing it, and if you guys want to see what calling on WhatsApp is like in Russia now, let's check it out. Here's a video of a popular tech channel in Russia.
Алло. Ты давай не выпендривайся, алло. Реально нестабильное подключение.
Совсем не думаю, что может я просто подойду к тебе.
Не, подожди, ну ты прикалываешься или правда плохо работает?
Катастрофически плохо.
So yeah, that's what calling WhatsApp and Telegram a lot of the time right now is like in Russia. So essentially, yes. Russia is basically trying to right now completely cut off Russians from the rest of the world, it feels like. Because you see, a lot of Russians right now, especially those who left Russia like me, we're having a lot of issues talking to our friends, relatives, and family that is back in Russia. It's nice to live in the 21st century, right? Where you can actually call with a video call and see people that you know. However, if you live in the beautiful country of Russia, that is not the case. I've run into these issues myself when trying to call my parents. Sometimes it does work, but a lot of the time the quality is absolutely terrible. There's like 4 pixels on the screen and the audio basically sounds like this. You know what I mean? And all this is pretty much happening right now as a part of a bigger censorship campaign in Russia. For example, very recently they passed a new law in which Russia is now going to fine people for quote-unquote searching for extremist materials. Meaning that if you want to search for something that is banned, you will be committing a crime. Or technically, even if you want to Google what's banned, to find out what you're not supposed to Google, you will also be committing a crime. So, very nice. And they've also forbidden advertisement of VPNs. And they introduced actual fines if you want to advertise a VPN. So right now, Russian YouTubers, for example, cannot take any VPN sponsorships or they will be fined by the government. So all of this is pretty much done to keep Russians in the Russian information bubble. All the Western media already is banned anyway, you cannot read it and access it without a VPN. Now they don't want you searching for stuff, and also, even knowing what a VPN is bad already. But I feel like if before, right, in Russia the main focus was basically to try to restrict Russians from maybe accessing some information and accessing like Western sources, anti-governmental sources and so on. Right now, they're actually trying to not just do that, but also to cut Russians off from the rest of the world, to not let Russian people talk to their like friends and relatives who are abroad, living in other countries, living in Europe or whatever. Because here's the thing, right? Yes, of course, there are some ways around it. Like here, for example, an article in the Russian pro-governmental media, right? Talking about the ban of Telegram and WhatsApp and actually talking about the alternatives to them, which is quite hilarious. Like the Russian media at this point is helping Russian people to avoid the restrictions that the Russian government has imposed on them, I guess. So yeah, here they're promoting a couple of state messengers that Russia has recently created. For example, VK Messenger, Yandex Messenger, once again another one from Russia. And of course the now infamous Messenger Max, which is actually a messenger that is kind of like infamous right now in Russia. The Russian government is trying to force this messenger onto the Russian people essentially. They're paying influencers to create like obnoxious, terrible, bad advertisements for it. And essentially everybody in Russia hates this messenger so bad that like they dropped the app's rating on the Google Play Store to like 1 star. But yeah, these Russian ones you can only basically use if you have a Russian phone number. If you don't have one, you cannot register on them. That's the whole point basically. So if I live in Europe, I cannot really use the Messenger Max to contact my family. And here this Russian pro-governmental media is once again providing some Western alternatives as well, like Google Meet. I actually tried it out, by the way, and it actually works. This is like my way of getting around this ban, trying to call my family right now. But disadvantages. The Google Corporation does not abide by Russian law, which may cause a future block of the service. FaceTime also actually works as well, another alternative, but also only works for those who have iPhones and Apple products. So yes, there are alternatives and ways of getting around it. It's not a full-on ban that will restrict all communication for Russians with the outside world, right? But it is severely going to restrict the amount of this communication. People always overestimate the amount of like tech literacy of the average person, especially like the average elderly person. I imagine that in Russia right now, there's a lot of people who are having issues like talking to their grandma, their babushka, other members of their family, whatever, simply because that family member is just not really tech savvy, doesn't really know how to use the internet or like, you know, download apps even really, and is not savvy with things like VPNs and so on, right? And yeah, if you just have like some old 85-year-old grandma, you know, she's not going to be good at avoiding these restrictions. Russian babushkas, Eastern European grandmas, they're just used to using WhatsApp, right? And sending you those, you know, cute videos with flowers and kittens or whatever, you know, telling you that, you know, it's it's some kind of religious holiday today or whatever, you know, that's what they know how to do. And when you introduce all this difficult shit, like having to download apps, using VPNs or whatever, these are all scary, crazy words that like an old 85-year-old woman does not want to hear and recognize. You know what I mean? They are exactly achieving what they want here. Essentially now if you want to talk to somebody outside of Russia, there is a bit of a entry level of how tech savvy you have to be to do it. Which in my opinion is fucking insane and like extremely cynical. So let's get this straight. You're telling me that Russia is a country that claims that it cares about like conservative family values and so on, right? About the institute of a strong family and generations coming together to make Russia strong. Okay then, well I can totally see how starting a war and making a ton of people leave Russia, separating families, destroying families is a great move that improves the family institute in Russia, right? And I can also totally see how doing everything to make sure so that people who left Russia can no longer talk to like their relatives and their friends who stayed in Russia, to their family members, their mom, their grandma. That is also apparently an epic win and an epic way to improve family relations in traditional strong-based Russia. Okay guys, I guess. And to me it's pretty obvious why this is being done once again. We're going to a path of complete isolation and they're trying to bring the Iron Curtain back. They do not just want people to not read Western news and like Western media, anti-Putin media, and to not search banned extremist stuff. They also want Russians to not even be able to talk to people who have a different experience. That's fucking insane. And in general, guys, this is just what being in Russia on the internet is like now. For example, just a few months ago, Russia passed a law where they banned advertising on Instagram. Since Instagram is banned in Russia and actually it's considered an extremist website, even though all Russians still use it with a VPN, Russia has recently passed a genius law where if you want to do any advertising or like even self-advertising on Instagram, so promoting your business, promoting what you do, no matter, you know, how big or how small your business is, it's completely forbidden now. You can actually not do it or you will be committing a crime and you will be fined. And this has actually already led to a ton of big Russian businesses completely shutting down their Instagram pages and saying that, look guys, we can just no longer post updates about our business on Instagram because that is considered unlawful and banned in the Russian Federation. So essentially using the internet in Russia in 2025 has become a complete minefield where pretty much everything is banned at this point, even fucking breathing is banned on the internet in Russia now. And once again, to add fuel to the fire, now the internet barely works as well. And also you cannot call anybody outside of Russia. Incredible. Once again guys, I can totally tell that this right here is what the great genius leader Vladimir Putin has been heading towards for the last 25 years. No internet and no ability to call your family members in the big 2025, I can definitely tell that this right here is a great success for Russia. And I'm definitely very, very happy with everything that is going on. That's gonna be pretty much it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. The internet in Russia is completely cooked. It's never been this cooked, actually. And it feels like it's only going to get worse, so... Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, though. If you guys enjoyed it, then please make sure to slap the like button on it. And also, as always, if you guys want to support me additionally, and that is financially, then go over to the link down in the description and buy me a coffee or become a YouTube channel member on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Peace.